Calling the August 12th, 2024 meeting of the Harris Township Supervisors to order. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Stuck.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we are starting with the public hearing on proposed ordinance number 368, adding stop signs on Main Street at the Academy Street intersection. So if anybody would like to speak to that, come up to the mic and introduce yourself. And please limit it to 5 minutes.
I guess so.
Bud Graham, resident of 222 East Pine Street. The only comment I'd like to make, a couple of those comments about that is, I've been observing that. Number one, I think we're trying to solve a problem we don't have. I've been very observant of that intersection and over the years, and it really is not an issue. There's no problems with that intersection whatsoever at this point. Any stop signs, I guess, are something you can do, but I don't see a need for it. I just noticed the other day, I sat down on the porch over here, and I watched traffic go through there, and it was normal traffic. If you read if I remember the driver's handbook, you stop at a stop sign, and then you proceed with caution. That's what you should do down here, and I think that the traffic on Main Street isn't enough to put a stop sign, require one up there, I guess, if you want one. But one thing I think, in about 30 years, I only know of one accident at that intersection, and some kid came right into a mail truck and flipped it on its side. But that had nothing to do with the stop signs being there. So, bottom line, I kind of watch the traffic over there, and this an aside, I noticed 3 out of 5 cars that come down Academy Street didn't even stop at a stop sign. So I don't know what that means here or not. So I'd say there's really not a need for it. The traffic is very calm through here. I know the stop sign isn't going to kill us or anything like that, but I just not quite see a need for it at all. I mean, it's overkill, and it's sort of something that we really hate to get involved in, because once we had a stop sign here, we put another stop sign over there, and all of a sudden we start to add this to the village district, and I hate to see that. So I guess I'm not opposed. I just don't see a need for it at all.
Hi, Diane Farr. Had not planned to speak. There have been, as we all are aware of, several changes within the area, one of which is the lovely municipal parking lot, and people will go out onto the alley, and many will go to the right to Academy Street, turn and go to that intersection. So there has been increased traffic. So I believe Mr. Graham was speaking of the flow on Main Street. I'm speaking about the flow on Academy Street. Today, I left my house, went down Academy Street, stopped at the stop sign, and a big silver truck came roaring off of Main Street, ready to turn up Academy Street. He didn't have to stop until he saw me and realized we couldn't fit side by side. And that's the problem, is that we can't fit side by side. Another change that is occurring, as you all are aware, is the fact that we have Emma Court. And we have a huge number of large vehicles going up and down, taking material for building the houses on Emma Court. And huge dump trucks, as I'm sure Mr. Balko can talk about, the dump trucks that the citizens have been complaining about that go up and down the street. So there's an increase in traffic, significant on Academy Street. There's a new parking lot right here, which has more traffic, and as I see, it will be open to the public, so there'll be increased traffic. And there's the usual Academy Street, the fact that the area is so narrow, you can't fit but 2 cars. You can't fit a truck and a car going up and down. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Dave Asensio. I'm with EB Paving and Construction. I'm here on behalf of the developer of Hawk Ridge, the Toron Group, because they couldn't be here this evening. I'm the contractor that is tasked with putting these stop signs up in the event that you guys approve them in the ordinance. I don't have a dog in the fight. Doesn't matter to me whether you put the signs up or not. You'll have to listen to your residents as to what you want to do there. The only issue that I have is how this is written here. It's a little bit different than what was in the original plan. In the original plan, it simply called for installing these stop signs and stop bars. But in the ordinance that it sounds like you're going to approve, you've got an extra line tagged on there about providing some advanced warning signage in the way of those lit up video boards. In order to do that, the approximate cost is $1,200 a week per sign. So that would be $2,400 in additional signage that would be needed on a very temporary basis, warning people that this stop sign now exists, which I understand from a safety perspective is super important. But what happens on day 8 when that sign goes away? Or again, it's vaguely written what you have there. Do we want it for 2 weeks? Because then it's $4,800, which is an expense that the developer was not accounting for because it was not in the original plans. It's something that you're asking in addition, above and beyond what was in the original plan. We are putting up 2 new stop signs. So there's a sign which obviously someone needs to obey when they're driving a vehicle. We're putting up, I believe it's all-way stop sign as well at the 4 stop signs, so everybody knows they need to stop. We're painting a white stop bar in the road. That was all on the original plan. In addition to that, Mr. Songer from the Toron Group has also said, you know, he's willing to work with you guys on this. If we could put up a flashing, they make these flashing lights that you can put on the sign for a period of time to warn people that it's there. That is a much less costly expense. It's about $125 per sign. And we would own them, so we could just leave them up for a month or however long you want to leave them up there. Or in addition, we could also write the word stop, which you sometimes see at stop bars in a road. So there's really 5 things that could happen to make people stop there besides paying this huge expense of these advanced warning signage. So we respectfully ask that you, however you go on this, if you do approve the signs, that you do not make us put in these exceptionally expensive signage. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else like to speak to this topic?
I just wanted to follow up on Diane's comments.
Please introduce yourself.
Oh, sorry, Kathy Flood. I live right across the alley. And a lot of times when people are coming out of this parking lot, if there's more than one car going by, they go up on our property so they can get around each other. So I think I'd appreciate it if you guys would take that into consideration if you're thinking at all about maybe doing one way. And I don't know if I can bring this up now, but can I talk about the lights? I know they're dim, they're not glaring, but they still shine in our back windows at night. I thought they were going to be turned off at like 10 o'clock at night. Someone had told me that before, but maybe I got that wrong. That's it.
These lights here.
Yeah,
Okay.
the new parking lots, yeah.
Okay. Anybody else? Not, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Move.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right, under regular business, approval of minutes of July 8th, 2024, and public hearing July 8th, 2024.
So moved, sir.
I'll second it since everybody else was.
Oh, I'll second it, I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention.
Keep things moving. Any comments, questions about the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. Next we have citizen comments, and members of the public are invited to comment on any item not on the agenda, and we'd like to have a 5-minute per person limit, please. Comments relating to specific items on the agenda should be deferred until that point in the meeting. So anybody here for public comment on anything not on the agenda? All right. Next, Pennsylvania Act 65 requires posting of agenda items on the township website 24 hours before any meeting. Does anybody have any emergency or minimus items they'd like to add to the agenda? Okay. Township business. First, we just had an executive session to discuss a legal matter and close that out just before we came in. Next, I have a proclamation here. Where did I put it? Uh-oh.
It's right there beside you.
Oh,
Right,
next to
that
me
one.
over here. Blind. Designating September as Harris Township Suicide Awareness and Prevention Month and designating September 10th, 2024 as Harris Township Suicide Awareness Prevention Day. This is Harris Township, Center County, Pennsylvania, a proclamation designating the month of September 2024 as Harris Township Suicide Awareness and Prevention Month and designating September 10th, 2024 as Harris Township Suicide Awareness and Prevention Day. Whereas suicide is a public health concern, and whereas in the state of Pennsylvania, one person dies by suicide nearly every 5 hours, making it the third leading cause of death for ages 10 to 34, and the fifth leading cause of death for ages 35 to 54. This is CDC 2021 statistics. And whereas over 5.4 million people in the United States have lost a loved one to suicide, and whereas each member of our community is valued and irreplaceable, and whereas talking openly about stress and psychological health builds trust, reduces barriers to care, and enables early intervention, and whereas though we recognize there is no single cause or single solution to suicide, we know that access to support and treatment can save lives, and whereas local and state suicide prevention efforts should be developed and encouraged to the maximum extent possible, whereas most suicides are preventable by learning the signs and symptoms and limiting access to means, we can work together to help prevent suicide. Now therefore it be resolved that the Board of Supervisors of Harris Township hereby proclaims September 2024 as Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month and September 10th, 2024 as Suicide Awareness and Prevention Day, dated this 12th day of August, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on this proclamation? Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, that's unanimous. All right. Next is request to amend the general industrial zoning district to permit indoor recreational uses. Mark or Todd?
Center Elite Gymnastics is requesting an amendment to the general industrial zoning district to add indoor recreation as a permitted use. Center Elite Gymnastics is interested in constructing an indoor recreational facility at the Bollesburg Technology Park, which is located within the general industrial district. Per the information provided by Mike Negra, who is representing Center Elite Gymnastics, the facility will house athletic practices, family entertainment events, public athletic events, and local, state, and regional competitions. Mr. Negra and other representatives of Center Elite Gymnastics are present tonight to provide an overview of the request. And there was also some information provided in your packet.
Yes, indeed. Mr. Negra?
Come on over, Tracy. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to present this and answer any questions. My name's Mike Negra. I've been a resident of the Center region for over 40 some years. And when I met Tracy beginning of July, she presented me with the issue of Center Elite Gymnastics and what's happening with her business and where she wanted to get to by the end of August of 2025. She's been working, and I'm not going to put words in her mouth because she's going to speak in just a second, but she's been looking for well over a year, maybe even a year and a half, for the right location in the Center region that's affordable. I mean, the point of the matter in terms of real estate right now, commercial real estate can be running as much as $500,000, $1 million an acre. We're looking at 2.5 acres to house a 29,050 square foot building that houses kids and also adults who are dealing with ninja or gymnastics, and I'll let her explain exactly what happens in her business. And so I'm here to try and help her. I've provided you with a variety of background on this. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at it. We're here to answer questions about that. Dane Hooper's here, who's one of the partners of the Boalsburg Technology Park. In addition, there are a lot of supporters, I believe, from Center Elite Gymnastics who have their kids or grandchildren who are Harris Township residents. And so we're here just to show this support for her business, the type of business that the Center region needs from a quality of life standpoint, from an economic development standpoint, all of those things that are laid out in that white paper, for lack of a better term, that we gave you before. So I'd like to present Tracy Savannah Longdecker, who has been the owner of Center Elite Gymnastics, and she can tell you a little bit about her business and what her goals are. Thanks.
Thanks, Mike. Hi, I'm Tracy Salvino Longenecker, and I'd like to thank you all for your time tonight. I'd also like to thank our supporters from Center Elite Gymnastics who are here tonight to help us answer any questions or show support for what we're trying to do. So Center Elite Gymnastics was founded in 2011. It is a combination of my passion for gymnastics and my experience with sales and marketing. I am a Penn State grad. I have an advertising degree, and I was a Penn State gymnast from 1989 to 1993. So since 2011, we have served over 10,000 families in Center County and the extended area from there for gymnastics training, tumbling training, and we just moved into ninja training. And we have hosted since then over 30 competitions. We've brought thousands and thousands of people to Center County, and I would say that we have a very, very good standing in our industry. We're well respected, and the opportunity to build a facility in the Boalsburg Tech Park would enable all those families in State College and the Center County area to continue to be served with high-level gymnastics. We would continue to be able to bring people into the area. The 35 people that we employ would have jobs. And so we're really looking forward to this opportunity to work with Harris Township. So if there are questions that I can answer or Mike can help me answer, I would love to do that for you.
Got a question of Todd. Indoor recreation, is the climbing wall indoor recreation?
It is, but it's in a different zoning districts. It's in the general
across the
commercial
street?
zoning district.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the whole ball.
Yeah.
Different districts?
Yes.
Okay.
And just as a little bit of a background, you're currently in the Nittany Valley Sports Center. We're out near the airport. And she will lose her lease on August 31st, 2025. Not because she's done anything wrong, just because it's their property. So, she's got to find a new home. And as part of our request, we're going to ask you to, if you all support this, if you can fast track it. I spent 8 years with the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board. I know all about bureaucracy and how it moves and how you have to follow certain rules and guidelines. We understand that. But if there is a way that we can try and move this forward as fast as possible, John Sepp's going to be working with us in terms of our civil engineer with Pantera. So that's an important consideration as well, because we're trying to save this business, and so she doesn't have an interruption. And we all know how disruptive that would be.
No. What impact would the change make with the rest of the park? Any of the other vacant land that's there?
I don't know. That's a question for me. I think if the board wants to investigate issues such as that, it's appropriate to refer it to our planning commission, the Center Regional Planning Agency, for
full evaluation of those types of things.
How many more vacant lots are there in that parcel?
Well, it's a condo now, it's a condominium, the
Okay.
industrial park is, so there aren't lots per se.
There are not lots.
Right.
Okay, okay.
So I'm, I'm interested in knowing whether or not, I don't expect you have the answer right now, but I'm interested in knowing whether or not there's gonna be issues with traffic or parking. As a recreational operation versus a industrial operation. So that is something that I think we want our planning commission to take a look at.
I think your one sketch has the parking lot in it?
It's 60 spaces.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, 65 spaces. That might show 71, but we're looking at 65
Okay,
on an
okay.
everyday basis. And then there's overflow, and Dane, if you want to speak to this, you're more than welcome to. There's overflow. The overflow lot down by 322 is a very underutilized lot. Okay, and this space of hers would require 97 total parking spaces. That would be covered in terms of what's in the Bollesburg Park already. So there's 32 spaces down there that could be utilized. And then given the timing of her events and which are on weekends, sometimes evenings, it is really when the industrial park itself is not being utilized. So we think that there's a good synergy there in terms of how Center Elite Gymnastics is going to tie into the community that currently exists at the
Yeah, and
Bollesburg
I'm not
Park.
objecting, I'm just saying that
Oh,
this is
no, I
a
understand.
question that I feel needs to be
Mhm.
clarified for us. I'm gonna move that we forward this information to the planning commission for review and a recommendation.
I'll second that.
Okay, more?
Yes,
Go
I
ahead,
have,
Frank.
I have something I'd like. As far as, when I read through this and everything, I just came up with a couple questions, and my main question is, if we grant this to the industrial thing, it doesn't, this is a good use, I can see it fitting there, but what happens to the next guy that comes along that wants something that we may not want in, but we can't because we've already given one waiver, and it opens the door for future waivers that we may or may not want to do. So I thought a lot about how could we do that, and I think if we're going to add that, I think we should put something on there that puts some kind of a minimum size. If we're gonna allow indoor recreation, must be, you gotta have at least 15,000 square feet or some number that would keep somebody coming in smaller that would make us put a use in we wouldn't want there. Do you understand what I'm saying? I mean, put some kind of a minimum requirement that it has to be so big to be an indoor recreation in an industrial area. So I think if we're gonna do it, I think we have to put something on of that nature that would allow that. And the other question I would have is if they have these events and they're going to have a lot of people coming to the events, where does that come into our event permits? We have large event permits, that permitting process. If we give them the okay to put this building up in the industrial zone, how does that fit in? Does that give them carte blanche to have as big of events as they want? Or do they still have to come to us when they have large events that would follow our large event ordinance? I guess that would be a question I would have. If, because we could end up with a huge event there that nobody was planning for, and we may need police service or something like that. So those are my two questions that I came up with as I read this. That was my concerns. I think it's not concerns that will kill the program, but I think it's something that needs addressed, and I think the Planning Commission can probably address it best.
What did you say to me when I asked you what was on the agenda about this?
I don't remember. You'll have to jog my
You
memory.
said something to me about usage. You said that this could be a permissible use and that we're protected.
I think what we were talking about was the idea that if you want to restrict it to indoor recreation, we can craft a definition if that's the route we go, so that it doesn't allow in just a wide variety of uses. It would be very specific to what an indoor recreation use is according to our ordinance, and if it's not that, it can't go into industrial district. So that's something, I think that's what you and I
Yes,
talked about. Yeah.
yes, that was my question.
Well, I have a point. You wouldn't expect any more than 500 people attending any one of your events, or is that a possibility?
Over the course of 3 days, it would be significantly more than that, but at one
one
session at a
particular
time,
time.
I would expect around 300.
Because that 500 is what trips the special events ordinance, doesn't it?
It's one of the criteria for
Yeah,
a
so,
special event, yes.
We'd probably be safe there, and that's not.
And that's no big deal in terms of applying for a special event. That's an application process that goes through time, so
Yeah,
it's not a laborious activity.
right. It wouldn't kill this idea at all. So, all right. Any other comments from the board?
I sort of like the idea.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Me too.
I do too. Anyway. Okay, well, we have a motion and a second, so all in favor of this, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Well, that's unanimous, and we will move this to the planning commission and tell them to get on it right away.
Thank you very
much. It'll be this month?
This month, yeah, we'll have
Next
that
Monday.
next Monday evening at 7 o'clock. We'll have it on their agenda, at least for kind of an introduction. So if you want to be present, and it's up to you.
Next Monday at 7?
Next Monday at 7, and then, they can define, in addition to anything the board has asked for, what they'd like to get from our planners to analyze it for a future meeting. So if you want to be there to answer questions, you're welcome to, and if not, I can just forward along the material you.
And then it goes to CPC?
See, it would have to go to CRPC eventually.
Which is another month?
Yeah, so I think at best case would be they talk about it, or planning commission talks about it in
Great.
August, and then in September as well. They forward it along to you to look at in October, and then it could go to CRPC in November, and you could consider adoption in November. That would be the fastest scenario we could conceivably see, unless there's a lot of extra analysis required.
That's government fast track, Mike.
Oh, I know. Yes, it is. But if all the T's are crossed and I's are dotted, and we keep moving along, we answer all the questions and concerns, then we'll be there to help guide it, and hopefully we'll move it as fast as we can. November is stretching it. It's about a 10-month construction time frame, and we're going to have to take a leap of faith based upon the feedback that we get from the Planning Commission and you all, to maybe run parallel in terms of spending money on plans and development and get things going ahead of the approval process that comes out of this addition to the zoning. But that's going to be a leap of faith based upon what Tracy feels and what we feel and the feedback we get from you all. Does that make sense to everybody?
And John Sepper's been through the process so many times. He knows the system really well.
Exactly. So I'm confident of that. Would you like me to stick around in case there's any citizen comments on an agenda item at the end of the day, at the end of the meeting, so that if they have any questions, I can turn around and answer? Would you like that?
I don't think that's.
No, really.
It's not necessary.
Not really? You'd like to see me leave?
You're more than welcome to stay at the whole meeting, Mike.
Just go get to work. I think this is looking good.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much for your attention and consideration. Thanks.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Okay. Next on the agenda is a stormwater ordinance update. Is Jerry going to do that? Or
do that with a little bit of help here from Mark on the slide presentation. As we start working our way through this, as I mentioned to the College Township Council when we discuss DEPs, MS4, NPDS, MCMs, and BMPs as they relate to your PRP, if I start using acronyms you don't understand, or you have a question you'd like me to stop and back up on, just raise your hand. And this is a, yeah, so this is a discussion to kind of walk you through where we're at as much as anything else. So feel free to jump in as we go through. So next slide, Mark. So background, most of you know that you have an MS4 permit. It's a 5-year cycle permit. This requires you to manage your stormwater quality as it runs off. We call it a separate storm sewer system because a combined storm sewer system is when they put sewage and stormwater in the same pipe. So this is separate. You have separate pipes for those types of things. The various permit components, these MCMs and BMPs, minimum control measures and best management practices, one of these specifically requires you to adopt an update to your ordinance consistent with a DEP model ordinance, and the deadline for that adoption is September 30th, 2024. So, there's 3 documents listed here. We're going to talk briefly about a 4th one. But what we're looking at is your stormwater ordinance. You have what's called a declaration of stormwater access and maintenance easement. Every time you do a land development plan, you approve one of these with it. And DEP has proposed the addition of this operation and maintenance agreement. We're going to merge that with your DSAME so that you have one document, one signature for this purpose. And then the 4th item we'll talk about very briefly at the end is your pollutant reduction plan, the PRP, and how you're going to meet the goals of the MS4 program. So I've broken this presentation into 3 parts. The first part is almost strictly administrative updates. I'm going to move through those so that you understand what they are, but it does not impact how we do business. The nuances slightly impact how we do business, but in general, there would be no difference to how John Sepp prepares a plan and submits a plan. So, go ahead, Mark. Language refresh. In the bottom corner of each of these slides, it references the sections of the ordinance that we've updated. So where the old language said meet your NPDES MS4 permit requirement and meet the state water quality requirement, the new language says exactly the same thing, but it references the code and it's a little more legalese. So we're not changing how we do business is the takeaway from this type of thing. Go ahead, Mark. Definitions, we're adding 15 new definitions. These are definitions that you already knew, and we use them every day in common language. What is sediment? What is FEMA? What is a riparian buffer? But now we're adding a specific definition to your definition section. Storms. Right now, when somebody creates a land development plan and they compare the existing condition to the post condition, they look at the 1, 2, 10, and 100-year storms. So you're asking them to run that model for 3 more storms, 3 more data points. It's 3 more runs of a model. It's more paper, but at the end of the day, it gives you more data points for more consistency. NPDES consistency, this looks like a bigger addition to your ordinance than it is. It's probably the biggest narrative addition. In every project submitted to you, if there is more than 1 acre of disturbance, you require by ordinance the developer to obtain an NPDES permit. And to get an NPDES permit, they have to follow CG1. All you're doing is taking that language and putting it explicitly in your ordinance that says, if you disturb more than an acre, follow CG1, rather than that circuitous route where you were doing it anyway. So there's no change to how John Sepp does business because he had to do it anyway. Now it's just one of the check boxes in your ordinance. The exemptions to prohibited discharges, previously it would say things like previously it would allow your sump pump to go into the municipal storm system. Now it says non-contaminated water from your sump pump. Before, when it said residential wash water was exempt, now it says non-contaminated residential wash water was exempt. So what we don't want are giant buckets of suds running down the street and going into Spring Creek. You're welcome to wash your car in your lawn and do your thing, but these are the subtle nuances that DEP has slipped in here to try to eliminate giant buckets of suds heading into the open waterways. The nuances, these are the smaller adjustments that slightly impact how we do business. We're going to talk about fail-safes, term limits, and the existing condition is probably the biggest change, and it's still not a very big change. So this sentence is something that we all hope we would have said anyway. If we perceive something that's happening in a land development plan to be a public threat and risk the safety of the environment, that we should say something and stop it. This just says it in plain language so that it's in your ordinance. If we have a good reason to say something's a terrible idea, now we can say it's a terrible idea. So, term limits. This basically says if you have a land development plan, that runs its own set of term limits. It has its own time frames in it. If you have a very large house that has its own stormwater management plan, this just says that approval is good for 5 years. If you haven't built within 5 years, come back and ask again, and we'll look at it a second time. But right now, you have no term limit. Once you sign an approval, somebody could hang on to that for 10, 20, 30 years and then try to come back and say that it's still valid. So this just kind of makes it official, 5 years, and then ask again. And then the existing condition, when we do stormwater management, we look at a site, how it exists, and then whatever the increase in runoff rate and volume, we require management for that. If a site is approved, let's say back in 1996, and they build their site and they have their site, and then over the years they add a little bit of extra parking and a little bit of a storage building out back and a little bit of something, and they come back for 3 or 4 or 5 waivers because they're all such tiny projects. At some point in aggregate, you get to say, hey, that's enough. The existing condition is the last time you did stormwater management, you had X, now you're gonna do Y. So that difference is what we're gonna use as the existing condition. It's not necessarily what's in existence July 2024. It's the last time you had an approved stormwater management plan, or 2006, because that's the year this legislation was passed. We have this in the ordinance in 2 separate places. One has the definition, and then in another place when we actually do the modeling and we take the existing condition to the present condition, we have it explicitly called out in there as well. So that is the extent of the ordinance changes as far as what is changing at this time. In the D-SAME, blending in this O&M agreement, there's one new sentence, number 7, go ahead, Mark. So, go back. So one new sentence basically says, once you build something, you have to continue to operate and maintain that. And that's in your land development plans that you have to do that. It's in your MS4 permit that you have to do that. It's in your ordinance in general language, but now we're adding it to this D-SAME, where the people who actually own the property are signing and saying this is what they're going to do. And then number 13 was your, it was a catch-all statement. You have right of entry. You have right to repair something if somebody else hasn't fixed it. You have the right to back bill the person who you had to fix it for if they haven't fixed it. So it basically takes that big sentence and then it breaks it out into these sub-items, 14 to 20. It adds more strength and legalese to what's in that agreement. So go ahead, Mark. That is the extent of the stormwater ordinance changes. That brings you consistent with the required MS4 model ordinance, and that keeps you compliant for September 30th, 2024. Up to that point, are there any questions about the ordinance or the agreement before we move on to the PRP plan? So then, your PRP plan, pollutant reduction plan, you initially started drafting this 6.5 years ago. We did this region-wide. We identified projects that each community would complete, and that would reduce their contribution of sediment to the Chesapeake Bay. Your heavy lift in that pollutant reduction plan was a military museum stream bank stabilization project that was going to give you 40,000 credits per year for improving the stream bank on the military museum property. As you likely know, the military museum rescinded their permissions to Harris Township to build that project, which has sent us looking for other opportunities in the watershed. So go ahead, Mark.
Why did they do that?
What's that?
Why did they rescind that permission?
I don't understand. So what the Commonwealth said we need, Commonwealth DEP, is that we needed to have a perpetual right of access to maintain what we build so that it always eliminates that sediment. And so to get that, we asked the Commonwealth, DGS, for the perpetual easement for the right of access to maintain what we were about to build. And DGS said that they would not issue that easement, so DEP said they would not honor the project. And here we are. So
Really?
this was all 3.5, 4 years ago. Everybody was friends. It got approved. It went through Williamsport. Everybody was moving on a path forward, and then it turned left. So
The state said no to itself.
we moved on.
Yeah.
So your military museum project is now zero. There's nothing there. Your Willowbrook Basin project is underway. You've received grants for that project. It is in excellent shape. I believe we're going to have that done here by November, and you'll have those credits in hand. Spring Creek Estates, this is the Rockenbeck property that Clearwater purchased, and because of Clearwater's purchase of that property and purchasing additional property, and due to some rearrangement of numbers in College Township's accounting, it's increasing your share from 3,000 pounds to 20,000 pounds. So you're getting an extra 17,000 pounds out of that, but you're still 22,000 pounds short of where you need to be.
Where is that piece?
It's behind Creekside Estates. So if you're on Hauserville Road and...
So it's a College Township parcel?
It is in College Township, yes. So, but it's contributory to the Chesapeake Bay, and it's contributory to Spring Creek.
Okay.
Millbrook Marsh Project. You may have heard me speaking of this. Trout Unlimited and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service are doing a project in Millbrook Marsh that was not foreseen 6.5 years ago. This project, if done correctly and administratively correctly, would more than supply the necessary credits that you would need and get you over the finish line. If you would come up short, if there's any hiccups there, there's a Penn Hills project, which is a very simple stormwater project that College Township could lend to you. And then College Township itself is going to overrun by about 12,000 credits. So the takeaway here is not exactly how you're going to get to where you need to be. It's that Harris Township is fluid. You have paths to reach compliance. And right now we're looking at lower cost and how to manage your costs as far as getting you to the compliant point.
Are there other parcels in Harris Township that we could look at that would be added to this?
I believe...
Owned by nonprofits?
I believe that there could be, but if we have to...
We may have one.
Okay. And the question becomes, do we want to spend months getting permits, and do we want to spend up to $80,000 to do a project, or would we rather have Trout Unlimited give us one?
We'll take the truck.
So right now,
Okay.
in order to be compliant by the end of your cycle in June of 2025, we're looking at the ones that people are going to give us for free. And if we want to do more, we're always welcome to do more.
I'm thinking of the Linden Hall Park. We have a third of a mile of Mackey's Run.
Mm-hmm.
Make a note of that. It may be something that we could work into your formula. The association hasn't talked about this. They know nothing about the MS4, but it's a possibility we can work with.
The other issue is, when we get out Linden Hall, is that they're not inside the urbanized area. So remember that there's an urbanized area aspect to this MS4 program that causes you some hiccups. So we can look at it, but at this point, we're looking at cost-effective paths to compliance for you that are almost guaranteed to be offsets in hand. The borough is going to do the Walnut Springs project. They believe that they're in good shape. Patton Township is going to do the Meeks Lane project. They believe they're in good shape. Neither one of those projects have started yet. Penn State has already done the Duck Pond project. They're done. They're compliant. And Ferguson is, I'm going to say, about 70 to 80% done with their projects. So they're reasonably confident that they'll be compliant at the end of this. So at the end of the day, it's going to be, where are all these overruns within the region, and how does that work most advantageously into Harris Township's budget at this point?
Not having urbanized areas is what's setting Harris Township back.
We're limited. It becomes a challenge.
Yeah,
yep.
Okay.
So you basically have from Willowbrook in
Coming through town. And
Yep.
flowing through the museum.
Yep. Towards the museum and out the other side. So, but because you have access to the entire center region and the entire Spring Creek watershed,
Okay.
that's one of your advantages. So, key dates just so you're aware, the PRP amendment that adds Millbrook Marsh to this effort, proposes it to DEP. That PRP amendment is now available for public comment. August 12th, that's this meeting right now, presenting it to you. September 9th, if you would accept this presentation and want to move forward, that would be the public hearing. And September 10th, if you would have any comments on the region-wide pollutant reduction plan, you're welcome to speak there. And then September 30th, we submit our annual reports. Hopefully we have our ordinance adopted by that date. You're going to submit for your new 5-year permit in December, and everything needs buttoned up by June of 2025.
Under ideal conditions.
Yep.
Okay. So we don't run into a state against state issue again.
At this point, we're reasonably confident that we're trending in a positive direction.
Okay.
So,
So just for the public record, we don't measure the effectiveness of any of these activities we take. So they're best management practices, but no one goes downstream and measures our sedimentation, our water quality. And so it's just like spend money on this stuff.
aside from Penn State monitoring Big Hollow, you are accurate. Nobody monitors.
Okay. It's a sad situation.
Theory.
So I don't know when that fits in, so you'll have to tell me, Jay.
Speak into the microphone so I can hear.
I said, when can the questions come up?
So this is the conclusion of my presentation. If you guys have any questions, Mr. Chair, and
Okay, well, let's do the board first, then Ms. Hubbard, we can.
Let me go first.
Pardon?
Let me go first, then we'll go to the board last.
Okay, yeah, I'm fine with that.
All right.
Good, go ahead.
Barbara Hubbard. Jerry, I just wondered, I appreciate your expertise. It's way beyond my pay grade. It's way beyond my ability to understand what's going on here. But the one thing I am concerned for is Cedar Run. And my question is this. There's a I find it very offensive picture of a man washing a car. Looks like he's parked in a lake. He looks like some sort of redneck, I guess you'd call him. I don't think that's appropriate. But that was my concern, and Denny knows it. And you weren't here, Tracy, so you're kind of new to the game. But that was my concern about Kaywood North Estates, where you reside. And at one point you sat on the Homeowners Association board. You have 66 new houses up there. Everybody's going to wash their car probably at some point. They're definitely going to spray their yards with all kinds of chem lawn and everything else. How does that impact us? Why did we wait till now, where we're a month and about 2 weeks away from adoption? It looks to me like this has been available since 2022. Where are we at in that time frame? And why the rush to get to a deadline of September 30th right now? So there's several questions there.
well, speaking to your concern about being, I guess, more stringent with the
Well,
ordinance.
I guess I'd like to know is how, okay, let's put it in
Let's break them down one at a time.
let's go this way. That's a huge development that you live in, that the Stashicks and the Kings own, along with some other people. How does this ordinance being adopted now affect that development? How would it have affected it if it had been in place then, when it was adopted in September of last year?
These components are largely administrative, and they would have had next to no impact on how that went in.
And why do we keep talking about John Sepp? Is he the only one that ever puts any stormwater systems in? Or, I mean, does this apply to anybody other than Pantera? Or is Pantera the only one we're concerned for?
It would apply to all developers.
Okay, so it applies to all. And this section
2-1.10.d, where it says that at any time for any project that the municipality believes may pose a threat to public health and safety or the environment. When could this have been put in place before this next month? When could it have been put in place? When was it available for review by you?
5 years ago? I
And
mean,
we
it was
waited
available
this
when I
long
started as
to
engineer.
protect our waterways, which Denny's always concerned for, and we waited that long to do that.
Well, I believe we've always had the right to do that.
Yeah, but you said it's definitely in the law now,
It's in their model
but it
ordinance.
wasn't before in the way it was in the ordinance, correct?
No, before we had reasonable ability, now it's spelled out explicitly.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so you signed an agreement, Nigel, on July 10th, I think it was, with the developers for the stormwater system. There's a section in here talking about how do we do better to define existing or something like that. That, I think, would be existing now because the ordinance isn't going to be adopted until after today's date, August 12th, or on today's date. How does that agreement that Nigel signed and the developers signed, how does that impact? How is it impacted by this ordinance, or do they get grandfathered because the ordinance wasn't there? And should that agreement be redone after that ordinance again?
They're
Since
not
it-
related in any way. So when you speak to the existing condition for modeling, and you speak to curve numbers, you speak to runoff factors, you speak to land cover, that has nothing to do with the pipe under the road.
Okay, but what about the stormwater systems up in Kaywood that are
Right.
on that property?
Are they existing now? They're approved under an existing land development plan.
Correct. Okay, so they're existing, and that agreement will be covered by this, is what I'm asking, by the new ordinance. That agreement that was just signed on July 10th is covered under this ordinance. They would have to abide by this ordinance.
This ordinance, A, their grandfather, B, this ordinance does not change how we do business.
Okay, they're grandfathered, but grandfathered in the sense that they don't have to comply by this ordinance tonight, or grandfathered that they are still complying by this ordinance and all the extra changes that are in here.
They would abide by the updated operation and maintenance, but that's already in their plan.
Okay, that's all
I
I
don't
want to
know
be
what
sure. This is
extra we're
this is
looking
a
for.
big system, and that is a Trout Unlimited cherry stream. And you look down on it, and I look down on it, and Denny has cared for it for the last probably 45 to 50 years. And my concern is that we failed here. I really think we did. I know you can shake your head, Denny, but I really think we did. One, that development shouldn't be
We're
like that
talking the
way.
difference between urbanized, non-urbanized areas.
I know.
No,
I
Kaywood
agree.
North is-
I agree, but I think we're hypocrites. I think we're all hypocrites. We talk about these like credits.
Yeah.
This is hypocrisy right here. This is absolute hypocrisy, because that development is going to do more damage over its lifetime, dumping chemicals, gasoline, oil, everything that could have been prevented. It didn't need to happen. And you had something in this ordinance right here that could have stopped it. But we didn't. So we're all hypocrites. And I'm sorry, I think we won't live to see it, but I think some of people's grandchildren, they will see it ruined. And I'm just here to say I'm very disappointed. I'm really disappointed, because I think we could do better. And I think we really failed on this one, because we had the opportunity to do a lot better here. Plus you put septic tanks up in there. I mean, that's like insane to me. I don't understand any of that, but I digress. I appreciate the answers. I mean, I always find this emblem that the MS4 partners put out of a trout and no dumping to drains to the creek. We know it goes down drains all over this center region. We're hypocrites. We're all hypocrites. We just sit here and act like we're doing a good job, and we're not. So that's my personal opinion, and I think someday we'll all see it happen, that the stream is destroyed. So thank you. Thanks, Jerry. I really do appreciate your expertise because I know I couldn't do it. Thank you.
You're right, it is your opinion, but things are done by the law. We make sure we follow, dot every I,
I respect that lot.
and we do.
I just think someday we'll see that it's a failure. Thank you.
Would you like a motion to move to public hearing?
Yeah, go
I'll make that motion to move public hearing.
I'll second it. You want any comments from us?
Well, would you like any
I just
comments
have
from
a
the board?
question, and maybe I'm confused. But we have a stormwater ordinance. This is basically, we're updating what we currently have, correct?
Correct.
In other words, we already have most of these things in place. Like you said, we're not changing the way we're doing business. They have just taken it and made it a little stronger of an ordinance going forward, correct?
Of the model 2022 ordinance and what they're asking folks to do, you've had 95% already in there. So we are adding in those little extra pieces or changing the language to be slightly more specific.
All right, so basically, we're just making it better than what we had.
Yep. I will add that Spring Creek Watershed Commission, they have a second avenue. They want to look at regional stormwater ordinances, not just in the center region, but in the entire Spring Creek watershed, Bellefonte, Banner, the whole watershed. And they're also looking at what's in there, what's missing, how to make them stronger. So that effort is also running in parallel, but that is not related to your permit compliance and your permit responsibilities and your permit deadlines.
Because the
So,
commission has no authority to do that.
if they have good ideas, we'll listen, but it's
Correct,
not related
correct.
to your permit responsibilities, deadlines, and compliance.
Well, let me ask you this question then. You know, since we're in this part of the world and the green world and everything, in the watershed, because this is always my concern, if we have all these electric car batteries, are we going to allow them to be discharged, disposed of, stored, or whatever inside our watershed? Because if they ever fail and those heavy metals get into our watershed, global warming will be the least of our worries. So I'm always concerned about, you know, what's going to happen to batteries whenever these cars need a new battery because they're running so many big batteries and stuff, and the heavy metals in it. Has anybody looked at our, whether it's a stormwater, protecting our water sources, has anybody looked at that and said, we better put some ordinances to keep those batteries as far away from our water source as we can? I guess that's my question. And has anybody started looking at that?
I don't know what specifically the center region recycling folks have done to enhance battery collection. I know they take them. I know Lowe's takes them. As with anything, we can have laws that say do X. We can create opportunities for people to do Y. We can send a truck right to your front door to collect your recycling, and there's people that still won't recycle. And it's as good as people's individual efforts that they want to lay forward. Do people want to separate miscellaneous plastics and run it to a place? Do people recycle their grass clippings? Any of these things are on the onus of the person who's, you know, that user of what they have. So I would hope that people are not, you know, disrespectfully disposing of things. I hope that they follow the instructions on how to do that. We have hazardous chemical takebacks at our facilities. So I believe in the center region we have a lot of opportunities that we didn't have in my hometown growing up. And I think there are ways to look forward. And I do believe we do have the expertise and, you know, some of the people within COG and within the recycling and refuse world that can start looking at those things.
Except no one touches car batteries. They are done by the dealer, shipped to Ohio, direct. No one has the authority to touch these car batteries.
So
I know that for a fact.
Okay.
That's all that's the only question I had.
Did we have a motion and a second yet for this? We did, I thought so. Okay. Any more thoughts from anybody? All right. All those in favor of moving this to a public hearing and possible adoption scheduled for the September 9th, 2024 meeting, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. Okay. Next, the award of contract for sale for tax parcel 2512-117.
So at the February 12th, 2024 meeting, the Board of Supervisors authorized advertisement for bids for the sale of tax parcel 2512-117. This is the parcel immediately across the alleyway, just south of us here, and it's 0.2 acres in size. Bids were due by Friday, August 9th at 3 p.m. At the time we had published the agenda, we had not received any bids. However, after the agenda was published, we did receive 3 bids prior to the deadline. One of those bids was withdrawn. So of the 2 bids we received, the highest bid came from Habitat for Humanity. Their bid was a bid for $58,000, and they provided the required surety deposit. So a recommendation that the board award the contract for sale, tax parcel 2512-117 to Habitat for Humanity for $58,000, subject to the published terms and conditions of sale.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. All right, now we're back to proposed ordinance 368, which we had a public hearing for earlier, adding stop signs on Main Street at the Academy Street intersection.
So I would just mention briefly, Mr. Asensio did speak about the advanced warning signage. Can't get that out. That's not part of the ordinance itself. That was something that we had spoken with Mr. Songer about ahead of time, just making aware we'd like to have some type of signage out there to warn motorists that they're going to be coming up on a new intersection. Certainly, it doesn't need to be digital. It could be just a freestanding sign that says new traffic pattern ahead, just something on a temporary basis until people are aware of that new stop sign in that location. Certainly, if you want to have the red flashing light on the stop sign too, I don't know how long that would be before folks might get annoyed that live next to it, but it's just something to consider. So it wasn't that that's not part of the ordinance, you're just adding this as a stop intersection, and we can certainly work with the developer on some type of advanced warning system.
Was there a time limit on the advance? Were we talking a week or 2 weeks?
I figured a week or, yeah, like a week or two is what we thought.
It's not in here though.
I don't think we had it written in here, but
Okay.
it was just for a little bit till folks become aware of it.
That would be on East and West Main,
Correct.
somewhere down and then down toward the.
Right.
I'll move to pass ordinance, what number we at, 368? Gotta put my glasses on, I can't read that.
I'm gonna. So our problem is with,
I made the motion, so.
You made the motion, we need a second before we do more
Second.
discussion. Thank you. Now you may speak.
yeah, so our issue is with the traffic that's coming on Academy Street. And we have stop signs for Academy Street.
Your issue is sight distance coming off of Academy and looking left.
Okay.
And so the original engineering study looked at, should you remove the 100-year-old trees? Should you do one way only? So the original engineering study came to this, an all-way stop is the way to limit the lack of sight distance coming from that direction.
Back in 2007, 2008, 2009, when all this was being discussed, as Jerry pointed out, there were multiple options. At that point, the board had favored, at a recommendation from the our traffic engineering firm, the four-way, all-way stop, and that's what was incorporated on the plan sets for Hawk Ridge that were recorded in 2009. So this is something that was approved by the board at that time as a required improvement of the development.
That wouldn't remove any of the parking spaces, either right or left?
Well, there's no parking as you head west on that side of the road.
Yeah, okay.
On the south side, potentially, it could take a space out in front of where Ken Hall is, potentially.
There's a loop out there.
There is a kind of
So-
an inset area, but that would be
I don't
the
think
bump
there's
out, right?
And there's a bump out in front of the ceramic business?
No.
Is there or not?
I don't believe so,
No,
no.
no,
No? Okay.
no. It's only Ken has a bump out.
Right.
There is one space, do you want to explain that, in front of the pottery that they do, you have sort of blocked off from the very end of the sidewalk, and designated a space, at least a car length away. So no one can park right smack dab at that intersection.
But they do anyway.
True, but anyway.
I'm just kind of looking, I mean, I'm looking to, is this the best solution, I guess? Because again, it's the traffic on Academy Street. I appreciate the sight distance comment. And I'm just kind of, I'm sort of thinking out loud here. I'm not pro or con at this point. I'm thinking about, let's solve this problem. Is this the best solution to solve this problem?
It's two separate, I'm sorry, can I talk? Or, no? It's two separate issues, Bruce.
Speak at the
When we're-
microphone.
Microphone.
I'm sorry. It's two separate issues. When we're trying to come off Academy Street and there's someone parked illegally on the right-hand side and the trees are on the left, we're pulling out, and if someone's coming down Main Street, there's been some near misses. And then what you're talking about, the safety on Academy Street, that's a separate issue, and it's a bad one. There's trucks and cars speeding up and down. I think I said it a couple meetings ago. There was already one dog killed, hit and run. They left the dog in the middle of the road. But that's a separate issue. But at least for getting out of Academy Street or turning to go up Academy Street when a car is coming down, the four-way stop would keep it a little safer for us. So.
Academy being so narrow, it makes
I know.
it tough to get cars side by each, isn't it?
Yeah, Emma Court should never have been allowed to come into Academy Street. It broke all the regulations that were written before. It never should have been allowed. But it's done now, so.
Partly.
Anybody else have any comments? No.
Well, do you have questions to ask us?
Is most of the traffic on Academy coming out of Emma, or is it coming from further up the hill?
By further up the hill, where are you referring to?
Well, who lives above Emma?
You mean the party house?
Diane, could you speak to at the microphone just so they catch it? They kept on seeing that? Thank you.
There are a few houses above Emma Court, aren't there?
Well, there's the party house up on the very top.
The party house.
Yeah, they have parties up there. You know that.
It's a club, yes.
It's a club. Yeah, thank you. Right. But there is, right now, don't forget, the development is being built. So there's huge number of business vehicles going on up and down the street. Now, the question is, how much better will that be when it's finally built out? Well, what, 5 more houses? Yeah, give or take, right? So, and it's the narrowness. I mean, seriously, I'm coming down and this vehicle is ready to speed up Academy Street because many of them during the day are business. Does that help? I don't know.
Interesting. Well, I wonder, can we ask the developer to request that the business vehicles going up there not use Academy Street and come in the other direction through the development that he's adding on to? I mean,
I got a comment on that.
yes, sir.
I'll talk from personal experience. I had a street, at the end of my street was a cul-de-sac, and it was really quiet, and we didn't have anybody coming up and down the street. And then one day, the cul-de-sac went away, and they built gates and Discovery Drive, and we had track vehicles, you name it, going up and down our street for a long time, and it goes away. When the construction was done, it went away. We still have people that like to cut down that street because it's a little bit, a closer way, but, that's part of progress. And as far as telling the person that we can't have trucks on Academy, all you're gonna do is take it from these citizens and we're gonna put it in somebody else's neighborhood, and then they'll be here and saying, can you cancel in our neighborhood and put it in the other one? So, I don't know that we wanna get into that little back and forth thing. I mean, it's gonna happen whether we do it, but I don't see it being long-term as far as the trucks going up there. Once the construction's done, that'll stop. And I seen that on my street.
I respect your opinion, and I agree with you. Eventually, it probably will go away, though, as Kathy was just saying, a lot of people from that development cut through Emma Court now and go down Academy. We know, because she followed one of the cars to find out where their house was. She's very bad. But there are the two other issues. The issue is, as Mr. Haymeister said, is the narrowness where the two vehicles are trying to pass each other, and then the additional traffic from the municipal. So please take all of those ideas in when you're looking at a solution to our problem.
And we can't make it one way, either way.
Why not?
Can we?
No.
You can't make it more than,
Emma Court could be one way going.
pardon?
Emma Court could be one way going out, so then all that traffic from the top of Springfield Commons doesn't come down.
We'll make Academy one way, and that's not good either.
Yeah, you have to make Academy, you just make the whole way, one way in and one way
Well,
out.
I appreciate Kathy's comment that these are two separate issues, and the issue before us today is the stop signs. And I'm going to support that and call for the question.
Well, I just have one thing to say in support of it. First of all, I trust what you're saying. And I will also say that I never thought that Emma Court should be opened up, ever. I never thought that, and that was before I was here. But I support what you're saying. I also see what goes up and down Main Street, because I have a business there. I see people speeding up and down Main Street all the time. And I would hope that maybe a stop sign would maybe give people pause. So I agree wholeheartedly in putting in a stop sign.
I agree too. I look at it as traffic calming as well, because people have less distance to build up speed before they're getting to the more dense area of the village towards the diamond.
So the best of the alternatives.
Yeah, I agree. So, Bruce called the question. I agree. All those in favor of ordinance number 368, the stop sign, adding stop signs at Main Street and Academy for Main Street, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. Thank you. Spongy moth egg mass count.
In 2023, Harris Township funded the completion of a spongy moth egg mass count in several neighborhoods to determine if egg mass densities were high enough to result in serious harm to neighborhood trees. This study was conducted after residents expressed concerns about the potential for tree damage or loss and asked the township to consider budgeting funds for spraying in 2024. Staff recently met with Jim Myers from the Kaywood Development and Peter Kaufman from the Shingletown area to discuss their concerns of spongy moth damage in 2025. They're hopeful that the township will fund another egg mass count this year and establish a spray program in 2025. Egg mass counts are typically conducted in the late summer or early fall, as spongy moths have laid eggs by that time. So the board is being asked to discuss if an egg mass count should be completed this year, and if so, the areas that should be included in the study. In 2023, the study was primarily limited to township parks and a few neighborhoods that have significant tree cover. And if the board is agreeable to funding an egg mass count, staff will work on identifying a consultant that can complete the study. I will note that I had a discussion with Mr. Myers earlier today, and he is going to have someone from DCNR reach out to me. It sounds like the DCNR may be willing to help conduct a study for free. So that's something we could always take advantage of if you would like. The only drawback would be it be fairly soon, so I don't know that we could get notice out to everyone that you may have someone walking on your property to do a count. So timing is of the essence in that case. But
I like free.
Free is me?
free is great.
How extensive would that be? Would that be the same neighborhood, same parks? Are we expanding this, or?
So that's ultimately a question that I would need to get some direction from the board on. Last year, it was primarily the Kaywood neighborhood, the Shingletown area, and the Kennard Road area were the only neighborhoods that really had counts. And the development, Nittany Grove, as you head out 322. Those were the only neighborhoods that had counts done. But we had folks from that own land up here on the hillside, on the south side of the township here, a lot of the land here on the ridge is privately owned. And we had folks asking why they weren't counted, if we were going to consider spraying. So ultimately, you have to decide, I guess, what you'd be willing to consider, if you're even willing to consider a spray program at all. Because that's the whole point of doing the count, is to determine whether or not you'd want to provide any type of treatment options.
Did those counts come in low?
They did come in very low.
Was
Yes.
that a surprise to the contractor?
I don't know that he was surprised. Some of the residents definitely seemed surprised by the results. The contractor, as you know, speaking with different folks, it's a sample. So it's depending on which plots they walk, they may or may not have counted as many masses as others may have expected. And my understanding is they also look to see which masses are healthy. There's masses that maybe from the previous year, there's some that won't develop, or I'm not an expert, but I've been reading about it. And
Was there anything
what I've
undertaken
learned.
post-count by the property owners to correct their situation?
There were, particularly on the ridge, there was quite a bit of land up there that was sprayed through
Privately.
private property owners got together and worked on that.
Yeah.
There were folks in Kaywood that I know had their property sprayed, I believe from the underside. There may have been someone up there that had a drone spray their property, I'm not sure. But there were folks that sought private treatment options that were not necessarily aerial, and then there was some aerial here on the hillside.
What did the count cost us last year?
Last year we spent $2,000.
Two?
$2,000.
Two, okay.
Well, I mean, what is the goal of us doing this? To provide the public information, or are we going to implement a spraying program that we are doing? And if we do that, then what is the goal of that, and how does that work?
Well, ultimately, that would be up to you. Ferguson Township and Patton Township both have a spray program. Basically, it costs about $60 an acre for them to spray land, and they spray, from my understanding, both public and private, based on where the counts were high enough that warranted concern. So I think they were looking at egg mass counts of 250 masses per acre or higher. You know, ultimately, that's a question for the board if you want to expend township money to spray these trees. You know, if you feel comfortable going about that, we'd also have to contact everyone in the spray area and make sure that there's no one who does not want to be sprayed. If someone says, I don't want my property sprayed, my understanding is the contractors that fly will not fly within 500 feet because they don't want to have any liability by potentially spraying those properties. So when that happens in some of these other municipalities, they offer $62 an acre to the property owners who couldn't get sprayed, and they can use that to reimburse them for their costs. So there are models of how this is done elsewhere, but ultimately it's up to you as a board if you want to consider doing this for the township or not.
Yeah, I just have a couple of things here. Number one, I agree with Bruce. If we can do free, do free. That's number one. That would be first step. Second step is, I think we had an egg mass thing last year. $2,000 seemed like it wasn't that bad to go do it. But that being said, we need to start on it now. But this needs to be kicked to the Shade Tree Commission, because you're probably looking at, probably other than Bruce, there's not a lot of knowledge here on the spongy moth, and we're going to be asked a lot of questions, which I would hope that there's people on our Shade Tree Commission that are a lot more familiar with the whole process. And I would like to see what they would recommend to us, and they may have a better understanding of what the real egg mass is in our township, because they look at the trees and, you know, they go around, do tree inventories and stuff like that. So I would like to see those guys kind of get involved in this. I don't, what's your thoughts, Bruce, on that?
Yeah, I'm fine with dragging them in. 2,000, I mean, let's get the data. So if we can spend $2,000 to get the information, then we can make more intelligent decisions. Right now, we're sitting here, I don't know. I haven't gone out and I don't see any in my yard, but that's just anecdotally, that's not a survey.
The 2,000, I would think, saved us multiple thousands in not spraying last year.
I guess one question that I would have back to the board, so the $2,000 number was based upon the area that we counted last year. And it sounds like that's what DCNR would be willing to consider, at least third hand I've heard this, that they would be willing to consider doing it for free for the township. but probably just in that area. So if you wanted to include more area, I would need to know just so that I'm getting a fair quote based on the areas you want counted.
Yeah, well, let's see what DCNR recommends and wants to do.
Okay.
And, I mean, that's my, you know, we can then adjust.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'm back again. Again, Kaywood. Kaywood's worried about their trees. Every time we spray, we pollute. So my comment here to all of you is, and I think you're very astute at your questions, I appreciate them very much, but I don't want sprayed, and I'm sure there's lots of other people in this community that don't want sprayed. And I can tell you, there's golf courses in this region that they spray in the evening, and there's squirrels and there's birds dead all over the golf course the next morning. And they know it. But nobody knows that. We don't look at that. We just look the other way. So there's a lot of things here with Kaywood especially. You have a stormwater system that goes right into a Class A trout stream now. So when you're making that decision, you can think about your children and your grandchildren and the water, because that's what this is going to affect. And we just keep doing these things that are so imprudent because we want to save a tree right now. But what are we doing to ourselves? So thank you for taking my comment, and I hope that you'll keep it in mind when you make your decision.
What do they spray with?
Well, I think the most common is BT, which is a bacterial agent. There were
Right,
some.
which you can drink gallons of.
There are other options out there, but I think BT is the most
Yeah.
commonly used.
You're talking about Bacillus thuringiensis, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I didn't know what it stood for, but that sounds right. Yes.
Sorry. If you do get the people coming in and they're going through the yards, is there any way we can get notice so we can talk to them when they're coming through?
Yeah, that's something we did last year. Is we sent out notice to everyone to let them know when they would be there.
Oh, okay, great.
So hopefully that's the drawback with the DCNR. It sounds like it may only be 2 weeks away, so we'd have to really get moving quick on identifying the areas and get addresses and letters out.
Okay, thanks.
Any more discussion? So, kind of like consensus that we just,
Yeah, if DCNR can't do it, which was the free option, I'll find what other choices we have and get some quotes.
okay.
And whether he can fit it in, because it was so late, if the
Right.
contractor could do it.
I hope to talk to them tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
depending on the spring wouldn't occur till spring anyway, so.
Right, they don't spray until in the spring, so you'd have time to decide whether or not to put that in the budget and whether or not to have a program.
All right. Okay, municipal parking lot restrictions. There you go.
Yeah, so the parking lot behind the municipal building is substantially complete and is being regularly used by individuals visiting our township offices. As discussed previously, staff recommends that the parking lot be available for public use except during overnight hours. Such a restriction will ensure that vehicles are not stored in the lot long-term, and it will remain available for public use. The only exception to this restriction would be during snow emergencies, which is similar to how we address overnight parking in township parks. In order to establish restrictions, staff recommends that the parking lot be officially designated by ordinance and that restrictions for overnight parking be codified. If the board would like any other parking restrictions to apply, they can be included in a draft ordinance. So I'm just looking for feedback from the board. If you have any concerns with staff moving forward preparing an ordinance, if you have anything else you want in terms of restrictions for the lot, or anything else that you feel needs to be addressed now that the lot's substantially complete.
How do you plan on enforcing it?
Well, we would do it much like in our parks. It's a little easier since when staff shows up, if there's a car sitting here for multiple days, we can probably, call the police on that at that point or have it towed. So that would ultimately be what we would do.
Question?
Yes.
We don't have that issue now, and I don't know how heavily it's going to be used. But should we put some kind of signage out there for parking for our staff? That in case, it gets well used, that, our staff can come to work and have a place to park when they come in. We only have, 4 or 5?
I thought about doing that, but really, because of the hours we can be here with meetings and things like that, it's almost, staff parking from the hours of 7:30 in the morning till, well, it all depends on how late our meetings go.
Well,
11 o'clock at night.
I don't care
So-
how long it is. I was just saying, make them permanent signs.
Well,
that the staff
that's-
has a place to park.
I guess the thing was, we didn't want to take away parking on weekends when staff's not going to be here. I mean, we could easily do that if we have staff parking during weekdays, during office hours, what have you. We can look into it.
I
It's
think we should
important.
wait until we see what the usage is.
That was kind of
We can
my
always
thought.
add it,
Yep.
but if I just think we should wait and see what the usage is.
Agreed.
Mhm.
The more signs you put up, the more signs you end up putting up. It ends up being sort of a mushrooming kind of, except on Saturdays and Sundays between the hours of,
Right.
this is a compounding kind of thing.
Then you have to negotiate all the signage and see what it actually means, which can be frustrating.
Yeah.
It happens.
So, may I make a recommendation? Am I allowed to talk now?
Certainly.
Okay. I suggest strongly that you put one sign up, and that is for the township manager, especially during Memorial Day, because I know a township manager that had no place to park.
I found a spot.
Yeah, but you
Come
were.
to me, that's all you had to do. Come park right next to me.
So he deserves his name on a spot, doesn't
They use your driveway, Dan?
he? He's more than welcome to.
I was able to get a space here.
I'm afraid that might go to his head a little bit. Having his
Don't do
own
that to me.
designated space.
Okay, I'm gonna go back to when I first came in. If you're talking about parking restrictions, we haven't had anyone that we've noticed in the evening, but in the middle of the night, occasionally I'll see a car for a few minutes there. But if you could also just do the lights off, like after 10, that'd be great. Just another point.
That's something we would have
Street
to.
lights, you mean?
Is that safe, do we have a safety issue
Pole
with
lights.
that?
Yeah.
Well, I think we'd have to be, if you're going to do that, you'd have to do it after the lot is closed to the public. So I don't know if you want to do 10 o'clock or later.
But
Just
when is the lot closed to the public?
well,
We
that's
haven't decided
that's what
yet.
you have to decide on. What
Well,
hours? I would suggest, I think 10 o'clock's a little early, just in case folks are, down
What time?
somewhere around here in Bollesburg.
I don't know
But-
if you say that nobody's allowed to park overnight, I mean, that's fine and dandy, but somebody's overnight could be, I'm leaving at 4 o'clock in the morning. And somebody's overnight could be, I'm leaving at 5 o'clock in the morning. Somebody's overnight could be, so I guess my problem is what is our overnight? And I don't know if we should be designating that for safety purposes. I have questions about that.
The public parks have signage.
Yes.
Could you explain what that signage is?
I don't remember exactly, because it's in the ordinance. It was adopted last year, but it says no overnight parking, and I think it does have a time, and it says
Yeah.
except in cases of snow emergency, which is when folks need to park somewhere to get out off the road.
So maybe
we're not a public park.
consistency.
But
No, I understand. She just asked what was on our park signage, and that's what we say now.
I'm just suggesting maybe there'd be some consistency, since we have 7 parks that have regulations.
I don't know that we would be coming in and say, hey, that car was there overnight, and we're gonna
My
have
problem
a
is
move.
turning
but-
off the lights and having a safety issue. And if the public parks, I don't know when they say you're not allowed to park after.
I thought it was dusk to dawn. It was like,
It might be
All
dusk to
center
dawn.
region
Well, that's
parks.
when the parks are closed. But we
Yeah.
had an issue, if you recall, this was back last summer when you adopted the ordinance. There was a motor home or a travel trailer being parked in Yoder Preserve and was there overnight. And that was part of the reason why I think Mr. Marshall had put together an ordinance to not have that be permitted. They did, yes, they did, Bud. Yes.
but, well,
Can I speak briefly just as resident, not as your engineer?
sure.
Something as simple as, no parking 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. gives you reasonable enforcement, because then if people want to be, and it can be 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. weekdays if you have people that need weekend parking when they're visiting or something of that nature, because football weekends you might have people start dumping cars. But if it's that 2 a.m. to 4 a.m., then you have a very explicit enforcement time where State College Police can come down and put a ticket on a car. And 2 a.m. to 4 a.m., Is that the real hours people need the parking lot? No, but it gives you a concise window where somebody can ticket and do your enforcement. So they know, you know, you want people out of here at midnight. You want people to be able to enjoy downtown till 10 or 11. People do show up early for work if they're in a coffee shop or someplace. So even just a restrictive window as short as 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. gives it a point where people have to get out or they get a ticket. And we're not talking about towing away cars on first offense, I don't think. I think we're talking about some
We are?
thing. Wow.
I would also mention, at least on the lighting, it's something that we would have to have some changes made to the lights. When they were bid out as part of the package, it didn't include any type of adjustable timers on them. So what we have put in here is basically just a photo cell. As soon as it gets dark, the lights kick on. As soon as it gets light enough, they kick off. We'd have to have something done to add that programmable nature to the lighting to turn them off overnight at any point.
I've never seen these lights on.
Really? They're on right now. You will.
Was there ever complete darkness around this building?
Was there? Yeah, before there. Yeah, it was very dark out here. When you'd leave a meeting out here out back, there was no light at all.
That's what there was. But even having the police come, if they're going to drive by at between 2 and 4 in the morning, well, I mean, is there something that we can do to make less light but not make it as pitch dark as it was? Because I can understand the concern of the residents, but there's also a concern of having that parking lot pitch black, even with a police officer coming by. I just don't find that what I would consider safe.
Sure. Well, we could always look at shielding at least on these backlights so they don't shine in that direction or they're not visible from that direction. But I think otherwise you don't want to restrict lights where you may have people walking at night. That would be a liability.
I think we need a little more thought on this.
Sure.
And coordinating the parking times with the lighting times.
And also looking at the park, in case, finding out what the state park, our parks are.
Yeah, I can find that.
Okay.
Yeah, but I just, let's think about this for a while and get it right.
Yeah, and I think we do a better job when we have a draft. To say, that's not good, we like that, we don't like that.
What kind of draft is that?
Well, poor is lighting work for me.
Oh, yuck.
But, you know,
Which lights affect you, Dan?
I'm sorry.
Which lights affect you?
The ones
The two on the parking lot?
Yeah,
On the 12 hole?
yeah.
Okay.
And so the parks are 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. I just looked at the ordinance. That's what the parks are currently restricted from overnight parking from those hours.
11 to 6.
11 to 6.
You know, and by 11 p.m., we probably have pretty adequate parking space on our streets.
Yeah, but the problem that I come into is, you know, as a business owner, I do have a stake in this. Like, as a citizen coming in and saying, okay, during a football weekend, I don't want somebody coming into the tavern and staying till 12 and then going out to their car and finding out they have a ticket because, God forbid, they have to move it out of this parking lot. That's ridiculous. That's absurd. So, you know, I also understand your concern. So there must be something that we can do to work together. Whether it's, I agree with the possibility of back shielding it, so there's not maybe as much going that direction. I totally agree with something to work with like that if we can do it.
I can look into it a little more if you'd like and bring back a draft at least, and then you can start
I would
talking
like
about
that,
it.
yes.
I like the draft idea.
I'll do that.
Yes.
Just one last thing, and speaking for my neighbor, and that is that you're going to, let's say hypothetically, we say 1 o'clock, just for sake of conversation. You are going to have people coming in, and she will be able to hear the noise. I mean, because you get a group of people coming in or people coming in. So think about it from several standpoints when you consider it, whatever you decide to do.
Okay. Yeah.
I guess then tailgates are out of the question.
Let's see.
As long as they're daylight hours.
Okay.
I think next to the fire station.
So I guess we have some direction for you, Mark, and
Yes.
we'll move along to the next item, which is The let's see, Pennsylvania Municipal League Resolutions Delegate.
So PML is asking that for the summit that's scheduled from October 10th to the 13th, that the township appoint a voting delegate and an alternate to serve the resolutions committee meeting and annual business meeting. And I believe both Vice Chairman Hammeister and Supervisor Harden are planning to attend.
Yeah, I've been at the last couple of years. I can continue, because I'm on the legislative committee, so I help adopt the resolution. And if you go to the resolution meeting, if you're 5 minutes late, you might have missed it, because it goes pretty quick. Most of the work's done before we get to the committee meeting.
We have to appoint Frank Harding as a voting delegate and Denny Haymeister as an alternate delegate to the Pennsylvania Municipal League Resolutions Committee meeting and annual business meeting.
Second.
More discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, road closing and request to use the Bullsburg Fire Police for Bull City Oktoberfest 5K trail race.
So moved.
Second.
Got a question.
So close.
Where does this thing go?
Where does it go?
5 mile.
Around town. Just circles around town.
Well, actually, I believe this one goes up through Yoder Preserve, and they loop through Yoder, and then they come back down, I think, through the Bull Mansion property. So,
It's just circles right around town.
yeah, I have a
10 times.
map
About 10
somewhere.
times around. On bicycles and lights, the kids love bike lights on their bicycles.
No, this is,
no,
no,
that's
this
not
is a
this.
this is different, but
You want them doing that or soap and windows?
So it's,
Here's the map they shared with us that
Huh?
shows where they run. So this is Bowl City, and this is their circuitous route. You can see they're going this way, come over here, loop around, I think, come up here, loop around, down here, back over, down through here, loop around, and then they're back.
About 3 loops.
Huh?
4 loops.
Yeah, well, maybe multiple loops, but that's generally the area they're running is Bowl Mansion property, a little bit through Blue Spring Park, up through Yoder Preserve, a little bit on Main Street.
So, but 146.
that shows on 45 too. Is that the trail system?
That's the trail
Yeah.
system, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're not on the roadway, I don't believe at all, except right here at where Bowl City is. And,
The
and Main
140
Street.
I'm guessing 146 is the last residence on going that direction on Old Bullsburg Road.
And yeah, it's that general address of where that little house is there. I think they're at the corner of where Bowl City is, right
Oh.
here.
we don't see Main Street and Wagner as being an issue.
They're keeping the road open, and they did this last year, and I don't think they had any issues. They'll have fire police there to help direct traffic and keep the runners safe.
How we set for parking?
How are we set for parking?
What kind of numbers are they expecting? We need to look at parking.
I don't know if they provided specific numbers of how many people they anticipate, but because they're asking for use of fire police, that they had to register the special event. Todd would know how many they anticipate, or at least what they wrote down. But there's parking there at the Bowl Mansion, and I assume they're gonna be using a lot of that.
That's right, that is the last residence going towards Bull City Brewing
Right.
on Old Bullsburg Road, the
house.
146 last house.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Did we have a motion in a second? I don't think we did yet.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we did.
We did?
That was quick.
Oh, man, I'm
Keep up.
losing my mind here. Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. All right, manager's report. Anything you want to highlight?
Yeah, just a few things in here. Number 2, I did provide you with an overview of a traffic calming policy. I just wanted to make sure that the board is, I guess, agreeable to staff moving forward with drafting something of this nature. I know it's quite lengthy, but this is what PennDOT recommends municipalities do if you want to consider traffic calming measures, is you go through the engineering part of it and you make sure there's a lot of public feedback before you implement something, because you could have a few folks asking for it and the majority of people don't want it. You may not have an issue where folks think an issue exists, so you go through that process of having just a way of analyzing it.
I totally get it, but boy, I'll tell you what, I read this, I was like, you have got to be kidding me. You have got this.
I don't know if Jerry
I'd be
gets to
sick
live
of
through
it
those
by
or not.
midway.
been through 2 of these projects, not intimately, but in College Township. So you're aware of the 14 speed humps on Oak Ridge and Shamrock, and then Clover Road now has a right turn only coming out, so that people would stop making that left right at the exit. The exit coming off of 322 on the College. You got people stop going left and trying to dive back into the exit ramps from right there. So I've seen it work. It's not expeditious. It goes through a PennDOT setup system. I mean, PennDOT's not hurried, so it goes through the system of getting your appointed committee to opine and put their info into this. It goes through some professional services, and it goes through community to get all layers of input to make this happen.
I mean, I understand completely, but reading through it, I was like, oh my gosh.
You know we'll get the first one.
I mean, I kind of agree with it, but boy, I'll tell you what.
As I mentioned
I'm
before.
glad it's you and
Are we gonna have to have a traffic calming committee?
Well, that's ultimately whatever the board would like to do, and we can explore different options of how you want to do that. I know College Township has a specific committee to kind of review these requests, but another thing we have to keep in mind is that we'd have to get some type of speed monitoring devices to be able to really implement this type of
Oh, we
policy.
can get some of the little signy thing.
Yeah, we'd have to get something that we can take and move around and collect data, because everything that you do with speed traffic calming is going to be data driven, so we'd have to collect that data. And right now we rely on the police department to share theirs when they have them.
Trail cameras.
And it's just, it would be difficult to rely on them to constantly share when they have other places they have to use them too. So, just something we need to keep in mind.
We can borrow one from College Township.
I know.
I think theirs get a lot of use too.
We can get that one over there on Branch Road, the one there by the church. We'll just swipe that one. It works pretty good.
There's actually a company in town that sells them.
Yeah, I think that's who we got a quote from.
The little one?
Yeah, that's who we got a quote from.
Okay.
The other item I wanted to bring to your attention was item number 9, where PML has requested that municipalities appoint a legislative liaison. So I believe this would probably be a board member that would log in and essentially say, yes, Harris Township is supportive of this legislation that is being considered at the state level.
I guess I don't do that enough now.
Well, they're putting together some online tool to make it easy that you can do it on behalf of the board here. So this would be you appointing someone on the board to basically act on your behalf. They've asked us to see if our boards are interested in doing that. So if you want to, I'll put it on a future agenda. It's all up to you.
Go ahead, I'll call, what's her
Is
name?
restricted into the
I'll call Amy Sturgis to find out what's going on.
I have a question. Who's responsible for the repairs to the blacksmith shop?
So that is a good question, because they asked me that when they called me and said, we have issues with the blacksmith shop, and they didn't really give me a full inventory of everything that needs fixed, but they did ask if I knew who had paid for repairs in the past, and I'm not sure if it was entirely the Conservancy, entirely the township, or a mixture of both.
I know who would know. I know who would know. Jeff Durr, he did it.
Okay.
Him and Jimmy did it.
Can I ask you a question?
But let me have an answer. Yeah.
There was a fundraiser, and there is a blacksmith shop fund, and the village, the Heritage Museum handles it. And right now there's like $2,000 maybe in there. It's from fundraising and whatever, and that's with, and a couple of donations. That paid for the renovations of the blacksmith shop. I don't know what the issue is now, I really don't know.
They didn't give me a full rundown. They just said they were going to get some quotes of what they think needs fixed and how much it's going to cost. So
Probably Paul Wilson or Paul Ralph.
Paul Ralph.
Paul Ralph, okay. There's money in there, and I think it's held by the Heritage Museum, and they have their own separate account, so.
Yeah, I didn't know where it came
They're asking
from.
for your money out of what they're going, I wasn't aware of that, but that money, that was paid for out of that fund. So it was donations, it was whatever.
Well, I think that last one they did was pretty significant. They put some,
Very expensive.
they put some beams and a whole bunch of stuff out there. So I don't know what needs repaired now.
Boy, I'm not good with blacksmith terminology. I thought it had something to do with maybe where the anvil, like,
Well, they've had problems.
with the base, the pedestal of it.
They want to put a new pedestal.
Yeah, pedestal.
That may be the new pedestal.
I know that was part of it. Yep.
Maybe she decided we're going to do that now. Couldn't very well be. It does need, inside needs finished restoration inside. so we can use it, and they have blacksmiths who like to use it, you know, apprentice blacksmiths, that type of thing. So maybe that's what she's talking about.
Sure. Okay. That answered that question. It's a good thing we brought you today.
Okay, anything else in the manager's report?
Now, do you need us to give you any kind of consensus on this traffic calming thing?
No, I just wanted to make sure you were understanding what it was I was gonna be working on with our traffic engineer to put this together. Just before I did it, in case you had any concerns.
Tell them
It's gonna be some time.
Calm Bowl Avenue, then we'll discuss that. Thought I'd throw that. What the heck?
Okay. All right, moving right along, approval of vouchers now.
Move to approve voucher transmittal sheet 2024-07 for the amount of $168,922.95.
Second. You gotta
Okay. Any,
Seconded that with a try.
any questions about the vouchers? All right, hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, COG committee reports. Executive committee was canceled, therefore general forum is canceled, as you all would know. Human resources met earlier this month. The only two items business items were approving the employee relations budget and the employee wellness program budget, and we reviewed modified personnel policy, which will ultimately be coming to the general forum as well. Climate action and sustainability just met today. We got a presentation by our summer intern, Connor Bernier, and that was very interesting and very well spoken. Another thing that came up was letters of support for community solar. The committee was wondering if we should do that at a COG level, or if municipalities might want to get into it. But I think that would be going back to exec and then general forum to see if the COG wants to do it, and we could do it as well if we wanted to. This is to our senators.
Didn't we pass an ordinance for community solar?
No, this is a state ordinance, a state.
I thought we did pass an.
No, community solar.
It's House Bill 1842, which already passed the House. It's up to the Senate. So the committee was proposing that the committee or the COG or the municipalities write letters to Senator Dush and Senator Langer. I don't even know how to pronounce that. Langerholk. But it will be moving on to exec and general forum. Then if we want to follow up, we could do that. Let's see. And what would be next? We had a presentation by Mike Tilka about interest level and regional support on invasive species, i.e. spongy moths, and it expanded to possibly invasive plants as well as invasive animals, and and then there's also a postcard that was developed for the new refuse carts. Residents should be signing up to decide which cart they need. We should have gotten a sample of carts.
There are 3 carts out front,
Okay.
and they're going to be bringing by a stand with a sign on it with a QR code that you can learn more about, I think, the rates and everything like that.
Yeah. So that's informational to make sure residents get an opportunity to do that, because if they don't sign up, they'll just automatically get the biggest one at the highest rate. So it's worth looking into. And another thing, the recycling rebates that we used to get from the Center County Recycling Refuse and Recycling Authority have changed to mini grants, and so that's going to be a little bit different. So we won't have the pool of money available to do programs. I'm not sure how the economics of that work, but you know, the rebates have refunded.
It's cash from the sale of recyclables.
Yeah, but But the authority's not gonna do rebates now, they wanna do mini grants.
Just for this year, as a trial.
Oh, it's a trial?
Yep.
Okay, thanks for clearing that up. Okay, and that's all for me then. So, next we're on to Dennis for facilities, land use, and community infrastructure, solar power
Let's
purchasing.
take land use and solar power off, because they did not meet.
Okay,
The feasibility study on the HVAC program, a lot of data, a lot of information. It comes down to the necessity to replace a heat pump versus going through all the first floor, second floor heat pumps at very, very expensive numbers. Heat pump 17, which sits near the cafeteria up on the second floor, it's a $68,000, $6,000 to $8,000. We basically said, let's move ahead with that. And then looking at replacing all first floor heat pumps, second floor heat pumps, attic heat pumps, left side heat pumps, right side heat pumps. That's all in the study, but we needed to move with HP 17, so that one will be moving forward. We had a feasibility study on the Patton Township fire station. Not as much detail as we did on this one. So. And the second item on the agenda was the janitorial service for COG. The summation of all of the data comes down to the option of doing one full-time employee at about $80,000. The other option, and what I think the committee liked, was doing two part-time 20-hour people, which would save us in the range of about $40,000. So that's sort of what we're looking at now. But again, that's in discussion, so it's moving forward. So Mr. Frank.
I just have one question for you. On the HVAC system. I don't know how many, but they were supposed to be replaced in like 2018, 2019, something like that. And we called Train, which I think most of those in there are trained. We had the rep come in. The rep said, "Oh, they're in good shape. We'll put a few belts on here, a few things here, do a few upgrades, cost a couple $1,000s, and they'll last you another 5-10 years." Now, if they're at the point now where they're saying they all need replaced, has Train come in and looked at them? Have we called Train again? I doubt it.
Yeah, that study was done by.
It was done by Mr. Frank.
No, it was done. No, the heat pump was done.
Oh, this one, the current one.
By an engineering company, Reese.
Yeah, Reese Engineering. Yeah, they did the one on the library too. It cost us a whole bunch of money.
Mr. Frank did the library one. So
but I will tell you, call Train. Tell them in there, they call Train, have their rep come in, and they'll tell you exactly how good they are, how long they'll last, if they can last, if they need replaced. And they didn't charge us anything to do it.
Okay. There's pages of options with respect to how we do that, but HP 17 is the one that's sort of critical to get into before the.
But has anybody been in there when the room was too warm? Anybody? Didn't think so.
And it's interesting with respect to the second floor heat pumps in the attic. They're only accessible by going out through the roof because they were put in.
Yes, and that's the other thing, so it's a big roof job. That's why it's so expensive. That's why I said, have Train come in and look at it.
That's like a $250,000 job.
You mean through the roof?
Yeah,
through the
they
roof.
gotta take it out through the roof.
The roof.
Roof.
Shingles. Then we get into the discussion of the life of the shingles, and what happens after 2028. Do we reshingle the place? Do we redesign the roof? You can't put them on the ground because of the temperature outside, so it's an interesting complex. That's it. And the other, as I said,
you're gonna have to go to the mic, bud. So.
Well, very simple.
Take the mic
On
over.
the way to Michael asked this question. Does that janitorial service include the library?
No.
No, never mind, answer my question.
There's the library nor fire station, I remember, municipal building, because the municipal
So
building.
they're saving any money.
Pardon?
They're not saving any money.
Who is? You mean library?
And janitorial service.
Well, the municipal, State College provides janitorial to the library.
200 and some $1,000.
Yep.
And they're very
I should have went
sanitary.
with
Yeah.
mine.
They apparently like the
Police
option.
should empty their own trash.
Okay, that's about it.
All right, Bruce, all your park stuff.
So Parks Governance didn't meet, as in many committees, waiting for the new executive director to come on board. The Parks Capital Committee and the Parks Authority had a joint meeting. The meeting out at Millbrook Marsh it's a nice facility we built out there. It's a good looking, it's a good looking facility. I think we'll get some real mileage out of it into the future. Ongoing discussions still about the boardwalk, and to that end, there's a meeting with the advisory committee. Actually, we met with the advisory committee to kind of scope that out. And I mean, the consultant recommended doing everything, including, new sections of boardwalk and new trails to connect everything and stuff like that. And we're kind of calming that down and sort of looking at what's it going to cost to replace what we have and not expand, because it's going to be an expensive project. It's going to take some donations and stuff like that. In terms of the advisory committee, when meeting with the Parks Capital Committee, there was a recommendation from one of the municipalities that the COG appoint an elected official to the advisory committee. There has been an elected official in the past on the advisory committee. There's vacant seats on there. I think that one of them should also be probably filled by Clearwater Conservancy. Or no, I'm sorry, by Trout Unlimited, which is putting a lot into the Millbrook Marsh. I'll note that while it can be brought to the COG does not have the ability to appoint someone to that committee. The advisory committee was constituted by the authority. The bylaws were written by the authority. The authority is the only person who can modify those bylaws, and it is the authority's responsibility to appoint anybody onto that advisory committee, which means that we can get someone who is supportive of Millbrook Marsh and not antagonistic. That's my report.
That's it? Okay. All right, Frank.
All right, well, the State College Area Connector will start with, and there's an open house on this Thursday at Mount Nittany Middle School for everybody from 4 to 8. And if you're a property owner, which you've probably already been notified in the study area, they will be open from 1 to 3 for the property owners to go over and see what we saw the other day over at the fire hall. So if you didn't get to the fire hall, you can always go up there and see that. So that's Thursday. The MPO did not meet. We meet the end of September. And then we bring the Finance Committee. And I'm not real thrilled with what's going on in the Finance Committee. One of the things that was discussed was the formula, obviously, for municipal shares and how that's going to go. And they went, we're staying at the same 9.5%. But like I said to them, I said, well, that 9%, when it gets to us, in our budget, it's 30% because it's 9% of the COG budget. I said there should be something that ties the percentage to our budget, because everybody in the Central Region has a different budget. We're all on different things. So I would like to see something done, and right now nothing's happening. They're going with the same thing, and they're going to continue this until somebody steps up and does that. But I'm really not looking, it's unsustainable, and I pretty much said that if they keep raising the COG budget and that 9.5%, we can stay there, but as long as they keep raising the budget, what we pay in there is going to keep going up. And we got to do something there to fix that. For example, we had the code came to us, and they want to purchase 2 vehicles. Well, just to make the story, back in March, April, they came to us and they said, we wanted to buy 7 vehicles, and we need you to do a modification of the budget for $100 and some thousand to get the other 2 vehicles because they only had enough money in their budget to do the 5. And we said no. And so that was what we figured. So they bought the 5. Well, guess what? They came back to this meeting, painted it a different color. Now we want a truck here, we want the, but basically they want another, I think it's $100 and some thousand, $98,000 to buy 2 new trucks. And I said no, and I made the case that it's the same thing they did in April. And guess what? I lost 5 votes to 1. So I'm sitting there going, and I can't believe that everybody was on board that we don't need to do the budget. And this is what happens. And Walt came in with a different presentation, and away you go. But that being said, I'm just not real happy with the way the Finance Committee has been going. Our new finance director is doing a heck of a job, but they're tied down in all the budgets. Everybody's throwing stuff. So she's so busy doing that, the policy isn't going right. So I had this. So they passed this out. Now, we had all the comments from the program plan the other month. And every township had all these comments, and I was reading through them. And I don't know if I got them. I'm going to give them to you when Ferguson's come to me. But basically, on every township's thing, staff would write a little disclaimer. Well, that's true, but we really need to do that. They would do. So and here's the consensus. Yes, we're going to do this. Yes, everything's a yes on here because they just kind of put all of them together and come up with whatever they think the best thing is. So we really didn't get anything on this. So like I was talking to Mark earlier, from now on, we don't need to have a long paragraph on either one of these. We just vote yes or no. We're just going yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. I mean, that's pretty much what we're getting back. And I don't think it's constructive because we can read what the other townships do, but we don't have a place to sit down amongst us and discuss amongst the townships. By the time it gets to the general forum, it's in this thing, and it's already take it or leave it type of thing. You don't get to hear what the other townships say, even if you read it a month or so earlier. So that the process to me is not working well. We start having the meetings for the budget meetings in September. The 10th, I believe, the 1st, 10th and 12th. Here's our meeting this month. It had two action items on it. And we're less than 2 or 3 weeks away from sitting down and talking about the line items on the budget. And I'm just sitting, and we had when Bruce went last month, they didn't even have the minutes from last month's meeting. They didn't even have the vouchers done. So at the end of the day, I'm just not confident that the way this is going. I think that from my standpoint, we're doing the work of the agency directors. They're putting all these things out and saying, we want this, we want this, we want this, and we either say, well, okay, well, I guess I don't have any objections to that. But by the time it comes back, right now they're proposing a 3.7% increase, is what they're saying. Now that's before they start adding all the stuff that we've been talking about.
That 3.7 is existing projects and
That's exactly
nothing new.
Nothing new. Well, no, it's some of the new stuff, but they haven't got everything in it yet. They didn't. That doesn't have the capital improvements in it. So there's some things that aren't in it yet. And once they get all those in, I doubt it's going to stay that low. But the point I'm making is that this budget process, the agency directors should be making the line item decisions. This shouldn't be in front of a committee to make a line item decision. They should be making those line item decisions, and they should be based on the amount we give them. We should be saying that this is an amount of money, here's what you're going to get. We're going to increase 3%, okay, whatever the percentage increase, and we gave this much last year, we're going to give you 3% more this year, then it's up to them to do it. If they need something that they can't fund, then they should come to us for, hey, we need more money to do this, or hey, what do you want us to do? What do you want us to get rid of? But that is not happening. It's basically, it's basically a Christmas list, and everybody gets what they want. And that's what's pretty much going on. So the whole process this year, the finance committee did not give consensus to the capital budget. when the capital budget was all put down and all the capital things, there was a vote. It was not voted forward to endorse it to the general forum. And if you remember that when we looked at it at the general forum, it was not endorsed by the finance committee. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot, but that's a first step. You know, we're saying, look, we said, for example, the 4 out of 6 of the township said, don't pave the parking lot. Let's move it out a couple years, and it's still in the budget. And that's what's happening. They take each individual instead of looking at it as a composite and do it. So, like I said, I'm still trying to get to the end, but I'm kind of being the bad guy on there. I'm the one that says no. Like I said on these cars, I said no. We said no in March. Why would we say yes now? And of course, the other 5, they decided to say yes now. So.
Well, I have a question for you. First of all, two questions. First is there how do I say this? Is there any definitive action on any part of any other township that recognizes our partnership as townships and recognizes the ease of one township versus the hardship of another? I mean, I get the feeling that it's kind of like a screw you kind of attitude. We're going to do this, and you know, I get that feeling. But I'm just wondering where we are with that, with really understanding each other and where we're coming from, rather than just, you know, pushing us forward. And in turn, do we have a new director who's going to facilitate this?
As far as the new director, yes, we have a new director. What he's going to facilitate or how, I don't know, because I've not met him yet. I don't know that. So that answer, I can't. That's just a time wait and see. As far as the other townships, I believe State College Borough, the bigger the better. They're going to go along with whatever they want. College seems to be that way, and Patton can go either way sometimes, but they mostly go towards the majority. And then you got the 3. Ferguson's already said they don't want any. In fact, they want it to go backwards this year, which I doubt that'll happen. But they don't want any. Half Moon's struggling just like we are. They don't have a big budget, and so every time something new comes up, you know, it hits their budget hard. And then we have ours, and right now, it's probably 3-2 with us being the one. Are we going to be negative or positive? If we decide that we are not going to vote for a budget for whatever reason, that would be 3-3. That means the budget wouldn't pass, and they'd stay on the 2024 budget until something was passed or changed.
Again, I go to the same question though. I mean, why are we not recognizing the hardships or the wealth of individual? Are we partners or are we not?
That's what I'm trying to tell you, that I get from there that we are not. It's pretty much being driven by several.
And what did these people say? I mean, is the question even brought up? Like, what does?
Okay. When I said, I'll give you an example. I said on the pavement, I said, look, we don't need that parking lot. You know, we can postpone. I said that parking lot's in better shape than some of the roads we have in our township. I said we don't need to pave it. Well, no, it's not in bad shape. And the chairman of the finance committee said, "Are you an asphalt engineer?" And I just sat there going, "Well, what does that have to do with spending money?" It had nothing to do with whether, you know. But that's the thing, you know. They're going by whatever any expert says. Every time they do a study, they gotta do what the study says. So I think that from my standpoint right now, the only way they're going to get your message is if we don't pass a budget this year.
Well,
I think it's going to be hard, and it's going to throw the new guy into a hornet's nest, so to speak. But we can come out the other side better safe.
I mean, he really is in a hornet's nest anyway. I mean, yeah. It's ridiculous to me that we aren't looking at everybody's. I don't know. I just think it's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. It's just silliness to sit there and throw your weight around and not consider your other partners and everything else. It's like, I mean, I just don't get it.
Well, we need to get to it. We need to get to a revenue-based budget in there versus an expenditure-based. Right now, the budget is done on an expenditure base. Here's what we want. Here's what we need. Here's what we're going to give them. We need to get it to here's your revenue. Then we need to deal with it.
Do the 2 departments that have fund balances, code and parking rec? 2?
There's a lot more than 2 that have fund balances.
2 major ones. Does code spend their fund balance to buy their vehicles?
They want to go into the $500,000 of their capital to do the vehicles, but that's It still comes from the
Yeah, but
taxpayers.
they still,
Money still comes from the
they
taxpayers.
have a bigger fund balance. though.
They have a huge fund balance. The total fund balance for COG is like $8 million.
Why aren't they buying their vehicles from that fund?
I'm just saying, it's about $8 million. I added it up. And the thing is, with code, they are an enterprise organization, which means that technically they aren't using money from the budget. But I still think we should control that. I think that we should say, first off, when was the last time any property in the State College area has gone 20 years without a rent increase? You know, if they've got all this extra money, let's raise the rent. Let's raise the cost we give them for services, for accounting and everything like that. I mean, there's ways to move that money around without having to borrow it.
Well, I think code should be, rather than Parks and Recreation renting property, code should be renting their property on the market, and Parks and Recreation should be back in the COG building.
I agree.
The success of code has to do with the success of building in the area.
No, we run a pretty tight budget here in this township. Some of the other townships and municipalities are, taxed a little more freely and have a larger budget. So the idea that it should be a percentage of your municipal budget is kind of, because it's a kind of a perverse incentive there to lower your taxes or raise your taxes. Like if I lower our taxes, then we don't have to pay as much to COG. And if I raise our taxes, then we have to pay more to COG. So that one's a little. I appreciate the thought,
Yeah.
but you see what I mean about the.
Well, I thought about that too.
Okay.
And one of the things I thought about on it was you take everybody's tax rate, all the municipalities, you average them, and that's what it's based on.
Yeah.
So if you go up or down, but whether or not it's that or not, some way we've got to come up with a formula that COG understands that they get money, but they have to live within their means.
And I think it needs to come. The new executive director is the new guy on the block.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
But
there.
the agency directors ought to be advocating for their agencies.
Yes, exactly.
So the balance needs to be struck at the top, not at the individual agency. And then the agency directors need to do it. The message is, no, we don't have that much money. Then we need an executive director that's working with that agency director to pare it down and decide what the priorities are. And
that's my
fingers
main point.
crossed.
Yeah, and that's my main point is it's coming to us to do those decisions.
Yeah.
And it should be done at the agency directors and the COG directors.
Absolutely.
And it keeps coming to the committees for us to make these these choices, and that's not what we do.
When it comes to us, is like the decision's already been made.
Yeah, it's like, we do this or else, and so, like I said, we need to adjust where the decisions are made and get it out of our hands. We shouldn't be doing that. We're here to fund it. We're not there to make the decision.
We should make Bud stand there for a little bit.
Yeah,
I think
but-
that, I think we should
Make a comment about that. When you talk about the code, they are completely self-funded on their own. What they come for, what they charge. As you know, they get their money from builders. So that money is not taxpayers' money.
No, they get their money
Yeah.
from me.
Yeah.
And they charge me
So
an
you
arm
have
and
to
a
so
leg.
you have to
Wait,
set.
They charge me an arm and a leg for them
Yes.
to have an $8 million budget balance in their bank account.
They have to set their rate. That is up to the municipality to set their rate.
Oh.
If their rate is a percentage of the construction, then that is up to your department, the COG to do that, code to do that. But that money does not come from taxpayers, it comes from the builders, which they get it from their income.
Last time I looked, builders pay taxes.
Yes, yes.
That money comes from me, I just paid it.
Well, it's because you own a business. You had to do
No.
construction.
No, I'm putting an addition on my house.
Well, the only thing about this
I
code,
wrote a check.
the money, it's very convoluted. There are 26 different pay things, little tabs in there. Each one has their own budget. And this is where I think the Finance Committee needs to look at that individually, 26 different things. How are we going to fund this? How are we going to fund that? It's tough just to say, okay, we're only going to pay COG this much, you can divide how you want. If you said at 3%, somebody's going to get screwed because the library is going to want more money. They're going to have to take it away from Millbrook Marsh. What are they going to do? So you have to look at each individual fund, and each municipality has to reach a consensus on each one of those. So that's where the finance committee needs to do. Look at this and say, look, okay, we have aquatics, we have this. What do we think we want to? Do we want to have them? We want to have aquatics program. We want to have a library. How are we going to fund it? What is proper for that particular funding? Sometimes it may be 3%, maybe 5%, maybe the next one may be 2%. But it's not easy to come by. You just can't say, Code, here's your money, you decide what, or Call, here's your money, you decide what you want to do with it. It's a lot of work on the finance committee. They're going to, and hopefully this new finance director will recognize that and work it. If we want to have a library, we have to fund it. We have to agree on funding it. There's a lot of things that are wrong with library funding. We want to have aquatics. We're going to fund that. We have more marsh. We're going to fund that. If we aren't, then we have to drop out. But once it's there, we should fund it. But just saying, look, we only have this much money to give you. It's not really a very efficient way to do it. So it's going to be tough with the new finance director coming in. I'm hoping that it will work, and I'm hoping the finance committee will look at this and say, look, there's more than one. There are all sorts of tentacles on this thing. It's not an easy thing. It's 26 different meetings or whatever. So that basically is going to be tough to do. I know that.
Let me ask you a question, hypothetically, and I know what you're saying there. So let's just say hypothetically we're several years down the road and we're at 14 mils. Okay? We've had to raise taxes as a fund COG all these years and we're at 14 mil. We can't go anywhere. So we come back the next year and COG wants us to give more money. What do? Do we fire our maintenance crew? Do we not give services to the people of Harris Township? What do we do when we get to that point?
What do I know?
Well, that's the point. We've got to stop. We want to stop it now.
That's hypothetical. I think you're going a little too far on that. I don't think it's going to reach that point. We have a very good thing going with our Center Regional Council of Governments. It beats the heck out of consolidation. Believe me. And it is the best thing. We can pick and choose what we want. If we don't want to spend that money for this, if we don't want to spend money for the Millbrook Marsh, then we can just drop out. But you can do that. But I think
drop out all.
But I think we want to support these things, and you have to get a good. That to me is what the finance committee should do: sit down and say, we're going to support each individual program. How much we're going to give you.
So one of the things that's on the capital budget this year is the COG building wants all new furniture. So there you go. I mean, if we don't say no, then they're going to get all this furniture, and it's still in the capital improvement. That's why one of the reasons we didn't endorse it.
There you go.
So sooner or later we've got to say no, Bud. That's the point.
Well, that's true. That's what the finance committee needs to do in each individual table. Yes.
Well, the biggest problem is though, like even though we say no, everybody else says, yeah, like I mean,
It's a majority rules. It's still majority rules.
Well, I understand that, but the problem is when we are not looking out for our neighbors any longer. We are not saying that, oh, I mean, you do it with your friends. You do it with everybody. Why are we not doing it with our neighbors? I mean, I just did it with a group of friends, but we are not paying attention to what our neighbors can afford and what their citizens can afford and what we need to do based on our total involvement in the COG. We are all one. Or are we all one? I mean, I thought that we were all one, and then we walk in and we recognize what our neighbors are and what our neighbors' budgets are and what their people are paying. I just kind of thought we considered this when we made these decisions. I guess that I feel like I honestly I've sat in some of these meetings and I feel bullied. I mean, I'm going to a meeting tomorrow on the public safety. I'm supposed to vote for these cars. I feel bullied. I don't have a say.
No.
But I don't have a say because they're going to get them anyway because everybody else is going to vote yes. I don't know any shape of those cars. I have not been given information. I can dig for it, but I should be given that information, and I should be able to make a logical decision, and everybody should be making a logical decision. But I can't make a decision. Just I'm going to get vetoed or bullied into doing it.
Well, there's another way to look at this too. For instance, we have let's go with Millbrook Marsh Center right now. Fantastic program. Our citizens can get down there and enjoy millions of dollars worth of benefits at 9%. We're paying 9% of that. Library, we're paying all these programs we're having. We enjoy 2 great swimming pools, library, parks and rec, everything. we only pay, well, our citizens get down there and only pay 9% of this. So I think that's pretty reasonable. Now, the problem is coming at that price. How much we give each one of those individual is a different story. That's true. I agree with that.
Before you start
We
saying
get one vote.
9%,
Yeah.
it's 9% of the COG budget, it's 30% of our budget.
Yes, that's the problem. Our budget, I mean, our citizens end up paying, we're paying so much into the COG that we are unable to do what we need to do in our own
We wanted to
township.
add a new maintenance guy, and we wanted to add some new office staff last year. We couldn't do it because the amount of increase that went to COG.
And we've not, as far as I understand, we've not increased, I mean, all these years, we've really, we've had one increase in personnel over how many years? Was it?
That's an interim decision on
I know it is, and that's what we're talking about. So anyway,
Yeah, this is, hang on a sec, let's not turn a committee report into a gripe session, please. I mean,
I'm done.
yeah.
I don't think it was, I don't think it was, and I think it's very good discussion.
Well, it's not appropriate for committee. If we want to have a discussion on this like that, we should put it on the agenda, regular agenda. But anyway,
I just have a question though.
Sure.
About what came out of that. Who is responsible for the overall Council of Governments budget? Who is responsible for that?
well, we all are.
No.
Officials.
No. I used to run a $21 million budget. I can't do that anymore. Okay. Who is responsible for formulating the annual COG budget? No, just don't pointing. I'm asking a question. Does it come down to the finance committee, or does it come to the executive director at the end of a process with his agencies? There's a flaw here. There's a big flaw, and I think Frank has pointed it out, and it needs to be addressed. Because as Tracy said, you can't do a good job for your citizens if this Leviathan is out of control, which it sounds like it is. And I agree with Bud. We have many benefits. I was born in Bellefonte. Okay, I know what the benefits are of living in Center County and the Center region. But we've got to do a better job. And this is out of control right now. When I hear, as a finance manager, that people are coming in and asking for cars in the middle of the year, I am outraged.
Wait.
Please, we're getting really off topic here. This is a committee report.
But it is something we need to address.
We're working on it.
We are working on it, ma'am.
I appreciate that. But my question is, who is responsible for the COG budget?
I just told
Is
you,
it the
everybody. It's
No,
put
it can't
together
be.
by a number of people. We can't answer that question specifically. We can't pinpoint one person that's
Then there's the
responsible.
problem. We need to
there
have the
isn't a
executive
problem.
director be responsible for the budget.
The executive director oversees everything. Finance director
So does-
starts-
so does
the
every-
agency director. There's not an answer to that question, ma'am.
Yes, there is, because in a business, that's how it runs.
I-
The person who's either the president, the CFO, is responsible for the budget. So we need to be.
No,
Please.
that's not how.
Okay,
Mr. Chair.
This is out of
Yes,
control.
my 5
We
minutes
need to
are up.
stop
My
this.
5 minutes are up.
We need to
That's
stop
fine.
this, ma'am.
But I do agree that there is something in a process that needs to be looked at.
Okay, well, thank you for your opinion.
And I appreciate all your time, I really do. But I think that's part of the reason you sit here so much is because we do this over and over and over again. Thank you.
Take it outside.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Do you have anything more in your?
No, I'm done. I've been done for 5 minutes.
Okay.
Public safety didn't meet last month, we're meeting tomorrow to vote on 2 cars, I'm done.
Ah,
5 minutes, second.
okay. Thank you for that brief report.
5 seconds. That's good.
Yay!
All right. Agenda item number 9.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Boom.
We got vouchers to sign.